Okay, good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for joining this webinar today. I hope you can hear us. If not, please raise your hand so we can, address it. I assume you are able to hear me now. So the attendees are still, participants are still joining, but I think we'll start the presentation. It is 4 minutes past 2, and we all need to go home and break our fast as well. Today's seminar is for the business transformation with AWS, and it is being done by BounceBack Technologies, which is an AWS select partner, along with Redington, who are the distributors for AWS. My name is Asad Siddiq. I head the business division of BounceBack Technologies. And with me is Sunil Jacob from BounceBack Technologies, who is a senior AWS consultant, and Khaja Rahil, who is AWS certified, highly qualified consultant from Redington. Sunil and Rahil will take you through the presentation. And the primary agenda of this presentation is to tell you how AWS can help you in transforming your business in this current scenario that we are facing, where we need to reduce our cost, increase the efficiency, agility, security, and how to go through this pandemic and ensure that we have the right things at the right place. Actually, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask or raise your hands. If possible, we can answer you there and then. Or we also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and we can take all the calls after that as well, actually. Once again, thank you. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. I will hand over to Sunil now to take you through this. Sunil, can you please share your screen?
Hi, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Sunil Jacob, and I'm from BounceBack Technologies, as Mr. Asad introduced. So today's presentation will be having two parts. So I would be giving you the initial introduction and brief overview about AWS Cloud and its components, so you will have a feel of what we are actually talking about and what we are going through. So without much introduction, we'll just start exactly with what we are going to see in this coming slides. What exactly is cloud, or what is cloud computing? We all know or for people who are new, it is an on-demand delivery of any IT resources over the internet, which we use with a pay-as-you-go pricing. So instead of buying or owning or maintaining a physical data center, we have the access, the technology, or the services such as computing or storage and databases on a need basis. So when we need, we buy. So we only pay for what we use, and we don't have any commitment of long-term contracts. The advantage of this is you can shrink and expand the capacity based on our operational needs. Very simply to put it, is as simple as electricity. You pay for what you use, and if you don't pay, if you don't use there is no charge for you. So what is then AWS Cloud? So here Amazon had developed the competency for managing its data centers at a large scale, especially for Amazon.com. So over the course of a decade, the biggest customer for AWS is Amazon themselves. And now, because of that expertise that they acquired, they are now decided to offer their expertise to the customers also. This is how AWS as a custom company has formed. So coming to the next slide, we see what sets AWS apart. Their first main priority is security. And here, AWS takes security very seriously. And we operate under a shared responsibility model where the security of the cloud is managed by AWS, while the security in the cloud will be managed by the customers, which we will explain in the subsequent slides. And then the innovation. Now, as I mentioned, the biggest customer for AWS is Amazon itself. So they have the expertise, the experience, and and along with that, the innovation that comes along with it to support a cloud workload. And along with that, the number of customers. The global footprint for AWS is also a very huge number. We have approximately 80 availability zones and spread across 25 geographic regions. So down the slide, we will explain to you what these mean. And we also have AWS is investing very high on machine learning, and each and every solution is depending on this particular system. The partner ecosystem for AWS is also extremely vast, which helps in the bringing of onboarding of customers and their support much more smoother. And as such, AWS is the, without any hesitation, we can say AWS is the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We can see here, it is the cloud leader for the 10th consecutive year. And now this is not a small feat, to remain in the highest position continuously for 10 years. AWS, this is what sets it apart. This is what makes AWS the leader, among others. And the review says it's all. Again, we are also the leader in the cloud AI development services. We are not only depending on compute, but we are also investing high on artificial intelligence and machine learning so that the services can be more improved. Further, AWS is also recognized as the cloud database leader. That means we provide the database management systems in the cloud at its excellence. We give almost 6 to 7 database services in AWS, both in RDBMS and NoSQL formats. Another report from Forrester, which with regards to serverless computing, again, AWS is the number one in that. So, having said that, what is our expanse across the regions? So, this is the basic diagram of the AWS global infrastructure. We have almost 25 regions and 5 AWS regions coming soon. Some of you would have come to know we have one region in India already, that's in Mumbai, and another one in Hyderabad is coming soon, which is already there in the paper. So we have others like in Switzerland, in Spain, in Australia, another one in Melbourne, and a few more down the line. And again, we have the availability zone. So within a region, we have an availability zone, and then the edge location, which are the point of presences. The point of presences, which gives the maximum amount of speed to the customers. How to explain our global infrastructure? So unlike others or other cloud providers, we do not define a data center as a region. A region for AWS is a particular geographic location where it maintains its presence and all its capabilities. Inside, so the regions are maybe, for example, in India, Mumbai is a region, so that's a geographical location. In the Middle East, Bahrain is a region, and in Australia, Sydney is a region. So this is a geographical location where AWS hosts its data center and other features. Inside a region, we have another location called as availability zone. The availability zone is the location where we host our workloads in high availability with fault tolerance and also in a scalable manner. So inside an availability zone, we host a data center. Some availability zones can go as much as maybe some regions can host 6 availability zones. The minimum availability zone in a region is 2. So each availability zone is interconnected with high bandwidth, high low latency networking, and it's also a fully redundant, dedicated fiber connectivity that's provided. So an availability zone is a fault tolerant location. Now within the availability zone is the data center. So an availability zone might have 1 or 2 data centers in a fault tolerance. And the availability zones are also located in a good geographical distance. For example, if we have one availability zone in Dubai, if UAE is taken as a region, we have one availability zone in Dubai, another one in Abu Dhabi, another in Sharjah. So that's the placement. And finally, what's the point of presence? The point of presence is the place where we have a wide and large footprint. So in case we use the AWS content delivery network, so if we want to deliver files or videos, etc., to customers, then that is the best possible way to deliver it because we have it near the customer location. In UAE, we have a point of presence in Dubai and in Fujairah. Now, we mentioned about the AWS infrastructure. We also, this is the wide range of features that AWS actually provides in terms of solutions. Now, the basic infrastructure, as I mentioned, is region, availability zone, and point of presence. Then we have our core services, which is compute, storage, networking, and databases, and CDN, which is content delivery network. Along with that, I said, as we mentioned, security is of utmost importance. So hence we manage security also as the core services, and along with that, management tools. Further down the line, we provide services in terms of analytics, for developments, for mobile services, for Internet of Things, machine learning. These are the entire solutions that are being catered through AWS, including migration. So whatever requirement you have, name it all, it's there. Further, we also have a marketplace through which we can opt for we can purchase requirements from the AWS marketplace, which can be implemented on the AWS network. The shared responsibility model, we have, as I mentioned, security is of utmost importance. And in this security, we take care of the contents of the cloud, the inside of the cloud, that is maybe the storage, the compute, the database, all those things will be managed by the customer. Now, when we talk about security and its requirements, we have 5 layers that we are looking into. Firstly, if we want to have this follows the AWS cloud infrastructure, where we implement a strong identity foundation in terms of identity access management. For example, if we want to have a principle of least privilege and enforce separation and authorization, then we go for identity access management. Now, not restricting users are not the only thing. We also need to detect. So we have a separate set of services for detecting, monitoring, for audit actions, and any changes in the environment, which are managed through log and metric collections. These are managed through the detection services. Then we have the protection available in the infrastructure level. We have, in terms of VPC, we have load balancers, and anything that provides, and firewalls we provide, that which provides a security for the infrastructure. Further, this security is then extended or expanded to the data. We provide protection of the data in transit and at rest. And we also ensure that the maximum kind of protection is provided in terms of keeping people away from data. That's the most important thing. Finally, preparing for security events is also an important metric in the AWS security. So we have something called as incident response systems. So we have a special incident management and investigation policy, and that helps us to process and align our organizational requirements. We can also run incident response simulations, and we can also have tools to automate and increase the speed for detection and also recovery. Finally, the most important thing is compliance. And we have services which allow us to automate software-based security mechanisms so that the compliance and we study the security requirements and implement according to the compliance. We also follow the compliance controls which are followed around the world. And these are a list of few of the same. With respect to MENA customers, these are a list of MENA customers that are available here. Kareem, Fly Dubai, Aramex, well known in the Middle East, are our customers. So how does AWS work in terms of pricing? We have three options where you have a pay as you go option, which is self-explanatory, which I also mentioned that you pay for what we use. Secondly, we also have an option where you do a reservation, which is called as a reserved instance. We give a commitment for 1 year or 3 years. So if you give a commit for 1 year, you might get a 50% reduction, and for 3 years, up to 70% is the price reduction that we can get. And then we get an option for pay less by using more. This is actually an option where we have a cloud front for content delivery. We have approximately 15 TB. When we say to the AWS that we have 15 TB of data we are committing to be transferring, then AWS will give us a private pricing. So this is the commitment which a customer provides, and which AWS also gives based on the commitment that we provide. And finally, how do we match in terms of CapEx versus OpEx? Well, we know that in a CapEx model, we have to purchase assets beforehand, and we have to pay in advance. Whereas in OpEx model, which AWS follows, we purchase based on the requirement, and the billing is monthly or annual. And then we know in a CapEx model, the property is owned by the customer, whereas the OpEx model, the property is part of an operating cost. Hence, I right now stop over here and hand over to Rahil, who will explain the identifying and realizing business value with AWS services. Over to you, Rahil.
Thank you, Sunil. Thanks for the introduction. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahil, and I'm working as a partner solution architect at Reddington Gulf, as Mr. Asad already introduced me. So I've been working with AWS technology for almost 5 years, right? And I've worked on multiple use cases, some of them related to analytics. I've worked on use cases related to compute, high performance compute, end user computing, networking, right? So, but my expertise lies mostly on the infrastructure management, DevOps, and in the database management. So I'll just share my screen, and then I'll take the discussion forward, and we will discuss about the business value with AWS services. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen. If there's a problem, please raise your hand and we'll address it.
It is fine, Rahil. We can see it.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Asad. So when we talk about business value with AWS services, it's very important to identify the value, to understand what value we will get by moving our infrastructure or by running our workload on AWS, right? So it starts with identification. We have to identify the value. And once we identify the value, we have to manage the values, right? It's important to take those advantages forward. And then when we manage it, it's also it's also important to realize those business value and put it across business practices so that we can take benefit of the value which is offered by AWS services. So first thing first, let's start with identifying value. And to identify value, there are two approaches, right? We call it top-down approach or bottom-up approach. So first, let's talk about top-down approach. So in top-down approach, basically we set KPI benchmarking data. So we identify business goal, we classify the business objective into categories, and we set different KPIs for those categories. Then we do a quick analysis just to make sure if we are meeting our KPIs or not. And then we will put these analysis into numbers, like what is the percentage of the KPI that we meet, or what is the value that we achieve in terms of numbers, what is the productivity ratio, right? So basically, it's a report that will be presented to the business management. So let's talk about the first stage, which is KPI benchmarking data. And to understand KPI benchmarking, it's very important to understand cloud value framework, right? Cloud value framework consists of 4 pillars. It is cost saving, staff productivity, operational resilience, and business agility, right? So when we move to cloud, we should not only think in terms of cost saving, right? Because there are many other advantages which AWS offer, such as productivity of staff, operation resilience, improve, reducing the downtime, getting uh, getting access to the number of services, thereby improving our business agility. So let's try to understand these pillars one by one, right? So in terms of cost saving, it's the infrastructure cost saving or avoidance from moving to the cloud. We analyze those aspects. For example, how much we can save by moving our infrastructure to cloud, or what is the reason uh, what is the reason behind not moving to cloud, right? So we'll identify those factors. Similarly, staff productivity means improving the business function, right? How productive your team becomes. So it can be measured in terms of dollar, or it can be measured in terms of hours. So example, an administrator may have to spend 8 hours to to provision a virtual machine or to provision a server, but in AWS he might have to spend just 15 minutes to get a server, right? So this can be measured in terms of hours, or it can be measured in terms of dollars. We'll see that in the upcoming slide. Operational resilience means improving our SLAs and meeting our SLAs and reducing unplanned outages. So with this, we can improve our we can meet our SLAs, and we can improve our business operation cycle. Agility, similarly, business agility means how frequently we are able to deploy new features and how quickly we are able to run our application, right? Nowadays, if let's say we have to release a new feature in our application, and if we have to wait for 3, 6, 8 months, I mean, that's a really long period, right? So we want to release new feature to our application very quickly, without introducing new bugs, right? So with cloud, we'll see how we can improve our business agilities as well. So some of the KPIs related to cost saving could be, IT spend on application per user, total IT infrastructure spend, right? Similarly, for staff productivity, as we discussed, how many VMs are managed by admins, how much time an admin take to provision a VM, terabyte managed by one administrator, how much storage he manages, right? Similarly, operational resilience related KPIs could be application availability, right? Uh, Application resilience rating, P1, P0 incidents, how many security incident happen, anything related to operation comes under operation resilience KPI. And business agility KPIs could be, time to deploy, time to market, how frequently you're releasing update, customer satisfaction, right? Or employee satisfaction. So this can be some of the KPIs related to business agility. Let's understand cost saving pillar first, right? What is cost saving? What is TCO, right? And what is the value that you will get by moving to AWS, right? So TCO means what is your infrastructure spending? How much you spend on the infrastructure, right? So in it could be, we have to do a comparison how much your current spending is, especially when you run your application on-prem, and then you compare it with when you run the same application on AWS, how much you're saving or how much your spending is when you run the same application on AWS. So I just give you an example. An example is of Live Nation. There is an estimated 18% of saving, and they realized that if they go with 1 year commitment, and after the 1 year migration, if they go with commitment of 1 year, they can save up to 48%, right? So this is what we call cost saving. And by the way, the link of the case study is available here, so you can go and refer to this case study. The important factor, that we have when we run our application on cloud is that we have to spend a large fixed amount, and many a times we have seen occasion where the resources are underutilized, right? Just because we are expecting a growth in the application demand, we're anticipating more traffic to our application, we are preparing for those events, right? So we buy more hardware, and there are times when these resources sits idle, right? And we are not making any use of these resources, so we spend a large fixed amount for unutilized capacity. These resources are not used, but we still have to pay, right? uh, Whereas there are situations when a traffic spike occurs, when there is a huge demand in the application, we see that the current capacity is not enough, right? So that's a lost opportunity. So customer comes and visit your application, he wants to place an order, but then the performance of your application is really slow. It is not able to scale well. So that's a lost opportunity, and that reflects in terms of business, right? So what you do, you'll buy more hardware, right? If you're running this infrastructure on-prem, you will buy more hardware to meet that requirement, right? So, but at times when you introduce new hardware, there's already a lost opportunity. A significant number of your customers have already left, right? And this is direct business loss if we talk about on-prem infrastructure. Now, the beauty of cloud is, so you can see the orange graph, which represent AWS, and the blue is actual demand. The beauty of cloud is it scales well, and it scales as per your requirement, right? So you don't have to pay anything extra. You don't have to make a huge reservation for the unused capacity. So you will pay for what you use. So let's say if there is a spike here, and if we are expecting more users to come and visit our application at this particular time, so we can easily meet it by scaling our environment at that particular time. I don't have to provision extra resources. I don't have to reserve any extra capacity. I just provision what is required, right? Similarly, if if the traffic increases, I can again scale my application using auto scaling. So as a result, what happens? I'm spending less, right? I'm only spending for what I use. I'm not paying anything extra, or I'm not over provisioning my resources. And I'm also protected against the opportunity loss. So I'm giving a good customer experience, and I make sure that my application scales really, really well, right? And with on-prem infrastructure, if you see, there is an opportunity cost. So to meet the opportunity, you are spending an extra amount on the hardware, which will never happen in cloud. So you only spend for what you use, right? This way you can significantly reduce your cost. This is a simple, economics of cloud. I'm sure you have seen this diagram many a times, but I just wanted to reiterate it. So now, as per the AWS benchmarking insight, it's a report which AWS publish. And by the way, the AWS benchmarking insight is based on the AWS customer feedback, direct AWS customer responses. They used to conduct reviews. They used to get customer feedback, and based on that, they generate report. So for the benchmarking insight, there are, I think, more than 1,000 customers, right, who AWS evaluates against those 4 pillars: the cost saving, TCO, operation resilience, business agility, and staff productivity. So for the cost saving, what report shows that before AWS, right, the overall spending was huge, and with AWS, they managed to reduce the overall spending by 19%, and that's an average basically. So on an average, 19% of your overall IT expenditure cost would be reduced. It can be more. I'm just giving you an average value depending on the workload, but on an average, you can save up to 19% cost. And if we talk about reduction in overall spend per user, right? So if there are 100 users who are accessing your application, so per user you will be able to reduce the cost by 27.4%. Right? Again, that's an average. Similarly, if more and more users are coming in, we have seen in the graph that we have to get more and more hardware to meet the cost. But in AWS, that's not a problem because AWS infrastructure scales really, really well. And the overall reduction would be 42%. Comparing to any other cloud, it would be 12.3%, right? If you are a multi-cloud, if you are already into cloud, and if you are into multi-cloud setup, so there will be a saving of 12.3%. This is a good number, especially if we are talking in terms of OpEx. It's a significant saving. Now, for the staff productivity means how quickly staff responds, right? And how productive they are, how efficient they are in their work, right? So this, again, there is a case study from National Bank of Canada. So building a Hadoop cluster in-house would have taken several months for them, but they were able to use AWS solution to deploy the Hadoop cluster, and they managed to do it in a really quick time, right? This way, they were able to validate their decision to move to cloud, and the staff were able to take advantages of the cloud platform. Again, there is a case study available, so you can go to refer to this case study. So in terms of staff productivity, we discussed staff productivity can be measured in terms of hours, right? How many hours staff takes to perform a particular business function, or it can be measured in terms of dollars. How much cost is reduced in terms of effort. So what we have seen, that is again from AWS benchmarking insight, that on an average 57.9% increase in the VMs managed by per admin, because AWS is doing the heavy lifting here. AWS will manage the virtualization layer, networking layer. So this way, an administrator can simply manage more virtual machines, right? He can manage more application in that case. Similarly, if there's a team for storage, a storage admin can manage more terabyte of storage, which is, to be precise, 67.7% on an average. He can manage more capacity. And in terms of application that were re-architected or re-platformed, this is simply the lift and shift data. But if you do the re-architect or if you do the re-platforming, then the number increases to 147.7%. So you can imagine how productive the staff will become if they start using the AWS platform, and how efficient they will become. So similarly, this is directly proportional to business agility. So if the staff is more productive, then business agility is bound to improve, right? So if you re-architect your application or if you re-platform your application, the number increases to 147.7%. Again, this is a huge number, right? Similarly, for the storage administration, storage management, if you go with the re-architect approach or you go with the refactored approach, then the number is 153.5% on an average, right? It can be even more, but the average value is 153.5%. So the bottom line here is the staff is able to do more, right? The staff is able to meet more business function, and staff is able to manage more virtual machines, to manage more uh, terabyte of storage by using AWS platform. And again, with this, there will be less effort required for doing a business function. So if you have to provision a virtual machine, you don't have to spend 8 hours or 6 hours. You'll be up and running in 15 to 20 minutes, right? Now, operation resilience. It's operation resilience, as we discussed, it is about the SLAs, meeting our SLAs, reducing the downtime, reducing the unplanned outages, right? So this is a case study from a customer based in Russia. They are experiencing an uptime of 99.9%, which is a 15% increase from the availability in the data center, right? And if the site goes down, it can be restored in a matter of minutes from the backup system. So you don't have to wait for hours to restore the site. They were able to restore the sites in minutes from the backup system. The link of the case study is here in the slide, so you can refer to this case study. Now, in terms of operation resilience, if we talk about the users, all users who are experiencing a downtime, so the downtime was decreased by 56.7%. This is an average value, right? It can be more, but on an average, what the customer reported that they experienced a reduction in the downtime, 56.7% to be precise, and decrease in the total monthly incident. For example, there were reported incidents. If there were 100 reported incidents, then by moving to AWS, it's only 76. So the number of reported incidents also got reduced by moving to AWS. And this is again AWS benchmarking insight report. I see there are questions, so we will have a Q&A session in the end, and I will answer all your questions. Please make a note of your question, and we will have a Q&A session after in the end. Right. Similarly, P1, P0 incidents, which is the critical ones. So critical incidents are also less after the migration to AWS. And if we talk about return, it's 39.3%. So again, there is a decrease in the key indicators in which refers to operation resilience, simply by leveraging the cloud platform, right? Business agility is the last pillar which we talk about the cloud value framework. So with business agility means deploying new features and application in a faster manner without introducing bugs, without introducing any errors, right? Uh, Again, there you'll find multiple case studies related to business agility. So this one is from Dow Jones. Uh, this case study shows how they were able to, increase their development velocity by 30%. So I'll share. You can find these case studies in the AWS case studies. Case studies link I'll share in the chat. But on an average, as per the AWS benchmarking insights, what business reports that there is a 37.7% decrease in time to market new features. So they were able to roll out more features. They're able to roll out more services in a shorter time. There is also 39.3% decrease in the total time to deploy to production. And by the way, this number becomes very critical when you're talking about analytics workload, right? Because in business analytics and in BI, if you don't have the information, current information, or if you don't have information about the current data, then you're already behind. Your prediction will not be very accurate, right? So if you are able to decrease the time to deploy the updates or time to deploy our resources on AWS, then it will give you a significant advantage, especially in analytics use cases. And the developer also reported that they observed 341.5% increase in code deployment frequency. Means they can deploy their code 341.5% faster, right? So this is a huge number. So developers are able to do more activities on AWS. This way, we talked about operation resilience, business agility. All those things will be improved. All these are the value adds from AWS. So very important, right? We don't have to think only in terms of cost, but when we talk about cloud value framework, we have to talk about cost saving, staff productivity, operation resilience, and business agility as well, right? Now, if you're building a business case, if you understand these values, you can build a business case. So this is just an example where you can take an example of an average cost per VM. Let's take TCO. So, and if an average cost of a VM is $4,600 and average improvement is 19%, so the net improvement is $874 per VM. And if you have 10,000 VM, right, so you can multiply it by 10,000, so it's $8.74 million of saving, right? So likewise, you can prepare a business case for the customer, why they should move their workload to AWS. Similarly, you can highlight staff productivity. So if there are a number of, let's say there are 10,000 virtual machines. So if an administrator, if a customer moves to AWS, the improvement would be 58%. There are 8 server admins. So if we multiply by 58%, on higher value added activities, it will be 5. So you can see the core FTEs or will become 9. And here, if we multiply it by it, so it's 68% process improvement, right? So this way you can present a good business use case. Similarly, for operational resilience, you can say that by reducing downtime, you can save this much amount of money, right? So this is based on the average number which we discussed in our previous slide, right? 57% operation improvements, 57% reduction in the downtime, and the lesser downtime means more business value, right? Also, you can talk in terms of business agility. So before, if you are able to market new features in 90 days, now with the help of AWS and overall process improvement, you need lesser time. So the total number of days improvement would be 102, and hence you can increase your profitability by 25%. So if you want to build a business case, or if you want to build a use case with us, please feel free to contact BounceBack. We will they'll definitely help you in building the business cases, and all these factors will be considered while making a business case, right? So that was top-down approach. Now let's talk about bottom-up approach for the business value. So bottom-up approach, it is higher level of accuracy, but the other side is it takes more time, right? You need to invest more time and details. Uh, it is based on the detailed data from your organization, so it's likely to be much more granular, right? But the downside is that you have to invest a lot of time. So for customers who want to be up and running very quickly, this might not work, so you may have to go to the top down approach. While modeling on-premises cost, it is very important that we look at the holistic picture, right? We have to factor all sort of cost. So AWS pricing includes all the items, right? Like your compute, OS layer, power, cooling, server network, labor, patching, local storage, wide area network. This is inclusive of all these cost factors, right? So when we are making a comparison, so it should include all of those cost bucket in the on-premises or colocation side, right? So when you make a comparison, just make sure you include power, you include cooling cost, you include server network cost, you include patching cost, right? Labor, local storage, wide area network. Many times what we do, we just compare the cost of compute when we run an infrastructure on AWS, and when we run an infrastructure on-prem, we just make a comparison between compute, but that's not right. So these all things are included in AWS, your power, cooling, labor, right? You don't have to pay anything for these things. It's managed by AWS. So make a holistic analysis. That's the key. To help you in making those evaluations, AWS offers AWS Migration Evaluator. So it helps you to make faster and smarter decisions related to migration. It also can advise what is the right migration strategy for you. It can also identify if there is any over provisioned resources, some zombie resources which are not being used. It can also advise you on the licensing strategies, right sizing, right? So just make sure when you do a bottom-up approach, make use of this migration evaluator tool. This tool can collect all the information, and after the collection, it can generate a report for you. And using that report, you can take intelligent business decision. So if you are making a business case, how it will be. So an example could be, let's say a user wanted to know if there's a value to migrate to AWS services. User also wanted to run migration evaluator for the analysis. So scope of migration identified after scanning the environment could be 12 days, could be 2 weeks, right? Here they have considered only 12 days. Collection period, a week, 10 days maybe, and scope includes 1220 OS, 371 terabytes of attached storage. Method is agentless, and licensing includes your SQL license, tagging completed by auto discovery, and other licenses. So if you have to make a business case out of it, how would you make? You will use this migration evaluator tool. Let the tool run for a week or 10 days, and based on the reports generated by the tool, you can identify which resources are in use, which resources are idle, which resources are unclassified, which are zombie resources. So zombie resources you don't have to use at all, right? So you can retire those resources. And which resources are idle. Expected idle. Expected idle means estimated percentage of the server are expected not to be in use but deliver business value in different ways, right? So they are not actually in use, but they are expected to be used in a different way. So using this tool, you can make a business case. You can tell that you can save cost by getting rid of these zombie resources, 305 servers removed for the future state modeling. Similarly, you have SQL Enterprises server, so you can use your existing license for SQL Server, and thereby reducing your cost. Likewise, you can also come up with a strategy, which strategy will be good for you to migrate. If you have, if the resources are optimized and if the resources are sized well, you can go with the lift and shift approach. If some kind of a sizing, if the resources are over provisioned, probably you can do right sizing, and then you can reduce your cost, right? So this tool helps, does everything for you, right? And you can present a business case in terms of number. You can tell that the average cost of running the virtual machines on premises is this much, and on AWS on an annual basis, this will be this much. Storage will cost you this much, and in AWS it will cost you this much, right? So you can, this way you can present a summary, and you can present present a business case. Now, what about, we have identified the value, we understood what value AWS offers, right? Now we want to manage those value, right? Once we move to AWS, we want to maintain those value. So it's very important to introspect and to analyze and to do a review, maybe every quarter or maybe every biannually, just to make sure that the infrastructure is up to date and we are following AWS best practices. For managing business value, it's measurement and accountability, right? Cost reporting, monitoring process becomes critical. So you have to monitor your resources. You have to report how much you're spending on each and every resources, and thereby have to identify any opportunity for sizing, right? If any resource can be resized, or if a resource can be optimized. As you know, AWS releases new instance type uh, every year, right? There will be a new instance family. So maybe the current instance family can be upgraded to a newer version, and thereby you can reduce your cost, right? So it's very important to continuously measure and have accountability on the resources. In terms of cost optimization, it's very important to have a cost aware architecture. So while architecting our solution, it's also important to factor the cost as well. It's important to match the capacity with demand. So we should think about the spikes. We should think about the sudden traffic which can come to our application, and use auto scaling capabilities as much as possible. We have to choose the right pricing model. For example, if you're running a dev environment, it doesn't make sense to go with 1 year commitment, right? For a dev and test environment, you will be better off shutting down the machines after the office hour, and thereby you can go with pay-as-you-go model and shut down the machine when they are not in use. So very important to select the right pricing model. And then in terms of management, it is also important to identify waste resources. So if there is any waste resource, if the resources are sitting idle, it's important to identify those resources and eliminate it. Now, budgeting and forecasting becomes critical. So for budgeting and forecasting, use intelligent tools. You can use third-party tools, or you can use native AWS forecasting to get your budget estimates. You can also do a POC for cost estimation, right? And then you can present a business case, and you can do a value articulation. So planning and forecasting again becomes critical when we talk about managing the business value. And then cloud FinOps, financial operations. This is a standard practice in many of the enterprises. So secure executive sponsorship, partnership between finance and technology organization. So finance and technology should understand each other, right? So this again, it's more of a business practice rather than any AWS service. So just make sure that finance and technology organization understand, and there is a good partnership between them. And then you have to invest in people, governance, and tool. So you have to have resources who can look into your financial operations, who can advise you on the finance side, and you can also invest in tools who can assist in FinOps. and then celebrate the accomplishments, right? Together with finance and technology team both. Now let's try to understand where are the low hanging fruit, right? What are the low hanging fruit? What things can be done quickly, right? With which will have more impact, especially in terms of cost, right? So this is a graph. X-axis represents complexity, y-axis represents impact, right? So if we talk about complexity, something which is easy is to use managed storage service, right? Use EBS volumes, use EFS. This is easy and it doesn't have much impact. Parallelly, it can give you a good saving as well. So consider that. So use managed storage service. Delete idle resources. This again won't have much impact and it's also not very complex, right? So these are low hanging fruit. You can do right sizing pre-migration. So before migration, you use tool like migration evaluator, or you use any other tool just to make sure that you're not over provisioning any resources. You do the right sizing, and this again has very less complexity, but it has huge impact in terms of cost. Right? You can think about reservation. You can think about savings plan, making long-term commitment, especially for production workload, and thereby you can reduce a lot of cost. This also is not very complex. Making a reservation is a simple process, and by making a commitment for production environment, you can save up to 50 to 70% on your total expenditure. Similarly, for the development and test environment, you can schedule your resources. You use only when you need those resources, right? Make use of the spot instance. Make use of the serverless architecture. So scheduling, again, it won't have much impact. Sorry, it's not very complex, but it has good impact in terms of cost, right? Spot instances moving completely to spot serverless auto scaling. So this require architecture change. So if you're moving to serverless architecture, it will have a good impact on your cost, but at the same time, it's complex because you have to re-architect your application, right? So, and similarly, right sizing in production. This is a continuous process. So you have to continuously evaluate your application and then do a right sizing exercise, maybe every quarter or biannually, just to make sure that you're running the right instance in the production environment. So there is complexity associated with right sizing, but as a practice, as a standard practice, we have to do it. We have to do it biannually, if not every quarter, right? So some of the low hanging fruits are reserved instances, right? Go for reserved instances for production. Highly recommended. Scheduling, schedule your instance. Use when you shut down the machines when you don't need it. Use only when you need the machines, right? So delete the idle resources. These are also easy. So some of the resources which you do not need, you should delete it, right? So these are some low hanging fruits. Now, finally, I want to talk about realizing business value on AWS. So we looked into identification, how we identify business value, how we can make a business case, how we can manage values, right? By doing a continuous review, by continuously evaluating our workload. Now let's talk about realizing. What is realizing? So I'll just present a quick case study that is again Intuit Mint. So this we have already talked about these four pillars: cost saving, staff productivity, operational resilience, business agility. So to realize it, we have to have a case study, right? We have to have some data. So in Qt, if you look at this case study, there is 25% of cost reduction. There's 15% improvement in the DBA productivity by using relational databases. And the failover scenarios that took 30 minutes now takes only 1 minute with RDS for MySQL. So the operation resilience also improved as a result. Business agility becomes 200% traffic increase at the beginning of the year, right? So that means you are able to generate more demands. hours versus week to spin up new services. So you can spin up new services in hours, not in weeks, right? So this is a quick case study, a customer case study to realize the business value. You will have your own data, right? Depending upon your workload. This is an example of Intuit Mint, but depending on your workload, you may have SAP, you may have Windows, you may have Microsoft workload. So the numbers will vary, but definitely we have to consider, we have to evaluate against all four pillars, right? We just can't consider cost. So cost is one of the factor. It's an important factor, but these factors are also very important. So just make sure that you consider all these four pillars while realizing the value. Right. Now let's talk about the usage, the cost, and what goods look like. Right. When you say it's a good amount of saving, what goods look like? What is that? So if we take an example of traditional on-premises environment, we will be spending an X amount of money on the infrastructure. If we do a lift and shift migration, right? If we do a lift and shift migration, you see the difference is very less. So you are saving, but you're not saving much, right? So what else you can do? You can do instance right sizing. So compare your on-premises instance. Just make sure you do right sizing. The resources which are over provisioned should be resized, and then resize those instance and run it on AWS. This will give you more saving. To take to go one step forward, you can make use of improved elasticity which cloud offers, like features like auto scaling, features like SQL always on, right? Features like database high availability, right? So if you use those features, you will further reduce your cost. So as you go, you may start with lift and shift or with a smaller footprint, but when you grow really, really big, when your usage really, really increase, just make sure that you consider all these factors. You make use of the elasticity. You forecast, measure, monitor, and you continuously improve your infrastructure, right? If there is any idle resources, if there's any resource which is oversized, or which is, if the demand is less, just make sure you capture it and you take necessary action. You select the right pricing model. This can have a huge impact, as we see in our low hanging fruit, right? So if we select the right pricing model, the cost can be reduced significantly. Down the line, you can also think about serverless architecture, but it has its own complexity, right? You can't do from day one, right? So have that in your plan. And when you move to AWS, when you go along with AWS, just consider serverless architecture as well, wherever possible, right? And similarly, by using AWS managed services like RDS, like Elastic File System, you can again reduce your total expenditure, your total cost, right? So along the line, if you do lift and shift, I don't think you'll see much benefit. But if you make right sizing, if we make use of improved elasticity, if you make use of storage optimization, if you do proper storage optimization, if you select correct pricing model, this will have huge impact. And ultimately, we want to reach here, right, where our expenditures are really, really less. So these are the cycles, and these phases have to be considered by the customer. So we can't just say we did a lift and shift, now my job is over, I'm done. So it's not like that, right? So cloud, remember, in cloud, it's a continuous process, it's a continuous journey. So just make sure you revisit your architecture. Something which is relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow. So make use of the new services which AWS offers, and this will give you better performance, as well as it will also reduce your cost, right? Likewise, you can present a report. So how much your spending will be when you run the infrastructure for 5 years with improvements, right? For 2 to 3 years, what is the advantage, or how much you can decrease the unit cost, how much profitability can be achieved, right? How many, how much percentage of business can sustain, how much business revenue, more business revenue is expected. Likewise, you can prepare these report, and you can revisit again all those 4 pillars to prepare and present this report to the business, right? An example of it is available here in the analyst report. I'm not going to go through this report, but just to give you an idea, to realize the business value, you can present this report to the business, and this will have a huge impact, especially when you're talking to a CTO of a company or a CFO of a company, right? So we should have a solid plan. With that, I would like to end my presentation. I would like to say thank you very much for attending this webinar. I see there are certain questions, so let me stop the screen share so I can go through the questions. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks.